God damn it, Yol. Hi everyone. Welcome to Frenchbread's Dark Souls 3 lore run. I am Frenchbread, or Chris if you prefer, and as you can see, well, if you thought hollowing had gone in Dark Souls 3, it hasn't. And I believe it is a side effect. Well, I don't believe. I know it is a side effect of the dark sigils we have been picking up from all Yol here. So what happened off camera is basically I went back to Firelink Shrine and I proceeded to start throwing myself off the top of the topmost layer in order to kill myself. And every time my character dies, they get a point of hollowing for every dark sigil they have. And every time you elect to receive one of Yol's quote free unquote levels, you gain another dark sigil. So after tossing myself off not too many times, I got all the way up to 16 hollowing. And I believe at 16 or 15 hollowing, I'm not sure which, but one of those numbers, you go from looking like a human to beef jerky. Which sucks.
Oh, our champion of Ash. Welcome back. I would do anything for my master. Just say the word. As I have said,
Nothing new here, but you know what? We've already come this far. We may as well take every little bit he has available for us, right?
Be safe, our Lord.
So now it's all Lord this, Lord that, huh? Not just Champion of Ash. And, as you'll be able to see here, we now have 5 dark sigils sitting on our inventory, accumulating curse every time we die. Well, that's all well and good, I suppose. There's no true drawback to hollowing in this game. You don't have a reduced health pool like you did in Dark Souls 2 or the Spirit form in Demon Souls. Nobody really treats you any differently, but you look disgusting, and it's sort of irritating, right? So, one of the things you can do to combat the situation is to head down here into the grave beneath the undead settlement and chat up the statue of Velka. We haven't sinned that I know of. We do want dissolution. Dissolution, I don't know, of the curse that's on us right now. And it costs a certain amount of souls. I think it's relative to your current level. That's 3,800 souls. I bet our level here is... I forgot to look, but I bet we're level 38. Yeah, so... yeah, your level, I guess, plus... a little bit extra. Now, we are back to looking like a good old-fashioned human, and our hollowing is gone. But those dark sigils are still very much present, and like the item implies, there seems to be no way to heal them. Now that we're looking right, let's go back and talk to Yol and look at some of the other items we were going to discuss previously. Alright, Yol, you bastard. Let's have some words. Or this happens. And instead of Yol, you got this new shadowy figure occupying the same room. Just giving you guys a good look at this NPC. Since I'd say they're fairly important.
Oh, prithee, art thou good Yoel's master? I am Uriah of Londor, a close friend of his. Thanks to thee, Yoel's soul is redeemed. Allow me to express my gratitude in his stead.
Are we Yoel's master, and we somehow redeemed his soul? Presumably he was redeemed by being given the opportunity to draw out our true strength those 5 times. And Uriah here claims to be a close friend of his. What, so close a friend that she cut him down, possibly? Or did he die of his own will? Or his own volition, I should say, having served his purpose here, and having called, I assume, having called Uriah to the shrine, since he had served his purpose.
Another matter. Thou'rt a lord, art thou not? Bearer of the dark sigil, and our Lord of Hollows. For the time thou remainst our Lord, we of Londor shall serve thee. And I, of course, am also thine.
That's very provocative language. So, I think so far in the game, Uriah is the first one to refer to us not as an Ashen One or an Unkindled One, but as a Lord. She's calling us a Lord of Hollows. Not a Lord of Cinders, but a Lord of Hollows, which is an important distinction to be sure. And she claims that we have the support of Londor for as long as we remain a Lord of Hollows.
Thou'rt a lord, art thou not? Bearer of the dark sigil, and our Lord of Hollows. For the time thou and I...
Okay, nothing new to say there, but definitely a very interesting development, and probably my favorite. Oh, it's a tough call, but Uriah might be my favorite NPC in this game. She's got a lot of stuff going on with her. She looks badass to boot, so that helps too, right? And she's a vendor. She is kind enough, I suppose, to sell us the same sorceries that Yoel once provided. But she also has different items. One of which is the Purging Stone. Ash-colored stone encasing a skull. Reduces undead curse buildup and cures hollowing. Inhabitants of Londor, the land of hollows, use this secret treasure to feign normalcy. Occasionally, a hollow fools even himself and turns on his own kind. Poison throwing knife. A throwing knife dipped in poison. Throw at enemies to inflict poison damage. Used by assassins of Londor, land of hollows. The poison is jokingly known as Hollow's Blood. And also, I believe, not finally by a long shot, the Londor Braille Divine Tome. A Braille Tome of Londor, first spoken by Liliane of the Sable Church. Give this to a storyteller to learn the miracles of Londor. This is a forbidden tome, as it offers salvation to all hollows, and conversely curses all things living. And it looks like on the cover of the book there we might have a picture of the Dark Sigil going on. Dark Hand. This will be a very familiar item to all Dark Souls veterans. Weapon that allows its wielder to evoke an art unique to Londor, the land of hollows. It is also said to be an ancient relic of a primordial serpent. The Dark Hand mercilessly saps the essence of its victims, and it can also double as a special shield. cannot be used two-handed. It has the skill of life drain. Embrace the victim and steal their HP. Can only be used against humans. Untrue Dark Ring. One of the illusory rings worn by the Hollows of Londor. Retained human appearance while hollow. The Hollows of Londor are wretchedly aged, fraught with deceit, and dubiously secretive. It is no wonder that they are deeply detested. Untrue White Ring. Another one of the illusory rings worn by the Hollows of Londor. Take the appearance of a phantom. The Hollows of Londor are, well, okay, same description there. So, these rings just say, yo, you can't trust these Hollows of Londor. And she also sells rings of sacrifice. God dang. That is a lot of lore to go over all at once. So I hope you'll bear with me. I think the most large and important point to everything we've just encountered here is this idea of Londor, the land of hollows. Traditionally, a hollow, capital H hollow, is someone who has fully succumbed to their curse, to the dark sign, and they lose their soul. They become a mindless husk that operates on only the most basic instinct, and, you know, is not something you would consider capable of coherent thought, much less forming a land or a coalition or a nation of hollows. This is just massive because these items, Yuria, Yol, Londor, establishes that being you don't have to also be mindless and empty if you're a hollow. Like, intelligent hollows exist, and that is a big deal. If you take a look at, you know, these two rings, and we're gonna find this is true with the majority of items that directly refer to Londor, the description is just unmistakably antagonistic or biased against the Hollows of Londor. Like, it doesn't pull its punches at all. It calls them wretched, deceitful, and secretive, and that they are all deeply detested. I do believe that Londor is not a kind kingdom, but I'm not sure if it's as wretched and detestable as it's being made out to be. I think it's very natural for the living to be fearful of the concept of hollows that have not lost their minds. The living fear hollows, you know, the regular kind of hollows. They fear the curse. They fear turning into them and dealing with them. But the concept of hollows who are both, you know, intelligent, you know, sapient, that has to be very terrifying, because that's starting to look like an insurmountable problem, right? The undead can't really or very easily be killed, and probably the only saving grace that, you know, people imagine they had is that they were mindless. But a kingdom of hollows who you can't really kill them, and they are perfectly capable of forming their own agendas, I can understand why there'd be a lot of fear surrounding them. And for what it's worth, I don't think that's unfounded fear either. I don't think that, you know, Londor is necessarily a evil kingdom, but as the tome indicates, it's not friendly to the living either. Like, I believe Londor probably sees itself as the future, or the true form of humanity, of humans. And I do believe they earnestly seek to provide salvation to hollows, but I think their form of salvation also kind of spells doom for the living. So that's kind of like my broad strokes opinion on what's going on with Londor and my thoughts on it. Minor points, the Purging Stone in Dark Souls 1 anyway was noted as being a treasure of Arstor of Karim. We talked about him a little bit, I believe, when we went over the Spear of Arstor and the Bloodbite ring. But this was another thing that evidently Earl Arstor had collected or conceived of I believe in a means of hoping to protect himself from the curse of the undead. It seems like somewhere along the line the people of Londor acquired these treasures. The way it's phrased makes it seem like perhaps which one was the one that referred to it as a treasure? I think this was Ancient Relic, but I think these are secret treasure. I don't know if they have the capacity to create purging stones. Certainly Yuria sells an unlimited number of them, but certainly they came into a cache of them if they can't create them themselves. Lilian is important, as is the Sable Church. We're going to find out more about them later, but suffice it to say that Lilian and Yuri are extremely important individuals in the Kingdom of Londor. And with a Dark Hand, this is another super important item because not only is this unique to Londor, but it's an ancient relic of a primordial serpent. We know who this is. This is Darkstalker Kath, one of the two supposedly, individual primordial serpents we can meet in that game. And Darkstalker Kath, of course, encourages us to let the fire die, assume a mantle as a Dark Lord. He puts forward the opinion that darkness and a world without fire will lead to humanity's true destiny. Like, that we were always intended to be this way, but the gods, specifically Gwyn, kind of tricked us or deceived humans into believing that they needed fire. So the fact that we can acquire a Dark Hand means that in one way or the other, Londor has a connection to Kath. So what am I going to do? I am going to buy this tome, buy the Untrue Dark Ring, because that might come in handy for us if we acquire too much hollowing and don't want to look like jerky. And I'm going to grab the Dark Hand as well. The rest I think I'm going to leave for the time being.
Till we meet again. May the dark sigil guide thee.
Oh boy, I was looking forward to this. I won't lie. Alright, so now we're going to play catch up now that we've done our little event there. First things first, you've already noticed, I'm sure, but we are rocking some new fashion souls. I did a substantial amount of farming, as my soul count probably led you to believe, in order to acquire enough Titanite to get our war pick up to +3, and I also infused it along the heavy path so that it has better strength scaling. As you can see, it does like a substantial amount less than our fire broadsword does, but keep in mind that the heavy war pick does not deliver split damage. It only has to get through physical defense, so against certain things it's going to be nearly as good, if not just as good, if not better. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Um, for our head, we've got the Brigand Hood, which I don't believe we've read the Brigand set yet, so we'll take a look at that. Hood from a foreign land probably belonged to a brigand who met his match. In foreign lands, undead were banished to send a message to populace, to the populace. And when the message was not heard, they banished the living too. By the way, if you're listening rather than necessarily following along in the video, it's not that I can't read or speak properly. It's just, as I've mentioned before, sometimes it looks like the localization for the text in this game is not always up to as high of a standard as it has been in some of the other games. So sometimes I have to like kind of fix the errors on the fly. We are also wearing the Fallen Knight armor. Armor of an order of fallen knights who disbanded and fled, but met untimely deaths. The drab, tattered cloth conceals tough, black metal, which provides dependable protection from fire. It is just possible to make out the majestic gold engravings on its surface. And for our hands and legs, we're using the assassin's gloves and assassin's trousers. Get a close view of the armor here. I don't recognize this armor from any other Dark Souls game off the top of my head, so I'm inclined to believe it's a Dark Souls 3 original. If you know any differently, go ahead and let me know. But as far as I can tell, I don't think there's any inherent lore, any big lore point I can bring out about the Fallen Knight armor, other than at least one of them met their end, I assume, either against giant crabs or those NPCs we saw near the giant crabs, the very large ones with the club. We'll be dealing with them again pretty soon. Alrighty. Let us go through our items, do a quick check, make sure we haven't missed anything. Oh, I picked up a dried finger. We're not going online with this character, but there are circumstances where if I decide I want to, I can summon multiple white phantoms, NPC phantoms, to aid us, and you'll need, in that case, the dried finger to do so. Let's see. No new gems. Aha. So I did a lot of farming. A lot of farming in order to get these items. Corvian Great Knife. This is the knife slash short sword that we saw some of those crow people using, and we can derive from this that those are called Corvians. Dagger of the Unwanted, those guided by heretical storytellers. A rather large dagger with a powerful attack, but this transparent attempt to intimidate foes reveals much about its owner's fears. And I do believe this is actually, if you pay close enough attention, this really is shown in gameplay terms as well. These dagger wielding guys, if you get close to them, but not so close that you activate their transformation, you'll see them kind of like swing this knife haphazardly and while backing off as if they're trying to intimidate but are too afraid to get any closer. We also have the Great Corvian Scythe. Great Scythe of the forlorn souls guided by heretical storytellers. The mistress of the painted world is said to wield a great scythe herself. Great scythes inflict profuse bleeding, such that blood splatters on the wielder. So this is a pretty cool weapon they threw in here. And I don't have the stats, so I'm going to equip it so you can see it up close. This weapon is making a very clear, unobscured reference to Priscilla the Crossbreed from Dark Souls 1. She dwelled in the painted world of Ariamis. And the real short version of that is that the painted world was kind of like a pocket dimension. accessed via a large painting that was stored in Anne Orlando. And within it were things unwanted, things exiled, things deemed dangerous by the gods themselves. Priscilla appeared to be a crossbreed between either humans and dragons or the gods and dragons, and she wielded a scythe called the Life Hunt Scythe, which was said to be imbued with the power to kill the gods. So, understandably, they locked her away within the Painted World, and there were many such things in the Painted World, along with many references to Velka, goddess of sin. So there's a metric, crap ton of speculation and lore with regards to the Painted World within the confines of Dark Souls 1, and I'm not going to go too deep into that because that's like a whole different series, but this scythe seems to have been made in clear imitation of the Life Hunt Scythe based on the stories that were told by these so-called heretical storytellers. So the Corvians definitely see themselves as unwanted, outcast things, and it seems like they take hope or comfort from tales of the Painted World and most likely would want to go there themselves. And we also got the Storyteller's Staff. Staff of a heretical storyteller who shares tales of the Painted World to forlorn souls. The storytellers, too, are wretched beings with no place to go. Their bodies, souls, and even their staves are all tainted through and through. And it has a poison spore special skill. So that actually kind of, if you think about it, that actually makes me feel just a little bit bad about cleaving through so many of those guys. Because it appears that they are just victims of fate. I don't know what exactly happened to them to taint them so, but in some ways they resemble the crow-like monsters from the Painted World, which many people associate with Velka. Perhaps it's the same with these Corvians, but they don't have a Painted World to exist in, and it looks like they've been roughing it on the path to sacrifice. Alrighty, let's get back over here. I do not believe there's any other weapons here that we didn't already go into. We talked about Hazel's pick. Alright, let's look at the sorcerer stuff first. Attire of a sorcerer from the Vinheim Dragon School. Represents those who have outgrown the academy, abandoning formal headwear and distancing themselves in order to continue their research in solitude. So, again, Vinheim Dragon School, very important region, faction within Dark Souls lore. They were present in Dark Souls 1. Big Hat Logan was a member of the Vinheim Dragon School, albeit a not very respected one. And they have continued to exist to this current age. And we have no new lore on the other headgear, but let's take a look at the Conjurator stuff. Conjurators were the predecessors to pyromancers, and they spent their lives roaming the lands. No wonder their attire was designed to protect them from fire, poison, and other threats of nature. So the predecessors of pyromancers. In Dark Souls 1, this was the default attire when you chose the pyromancer class, so I guess it's interesting that this is supposedly worn by predecessors to the pyromancers? I don't know. And not a whole lot more with the sorcerer robe. Or the brigands. I didn't really address this idea of undead were banished to send a message to the populace. It's a little vague, but I'm not exactly sure what message they were hoping to send. That the undead will not be tolerated? That they're not to be harbored or pitied? I'm not sure, but evidently some people were banished for not receiving this message and became brigands instead. I do believe we discussed the Sage's Ring. Sorry, it's a new play session for me, so I'm just catching up with myself. Okay, I think that's all the weapons we have on hand. But we do have new things to look at with both Arena and Cornix here.
Ah, there you are. I am...
Alrighty. Learning pyromancies. Fire Orb, I believe, is a new one. The signature flame manipulating spell common to pyromancers hurls a giant fire orb. The blazing fire orb explodes on impact, dealing fire damage to the surrounding area. They say that once a pyromancer learns this spell, their understanding of the flame deepens, together with a yearning for it. Alright, fine, we'll learn it. Bursting Fireball. Pyromancy of old restored by Cornix, one of the Great Swamp's more advanced spells, hurls an exploding fireball. A rare technique that undergoes change after leaving the caster's hand, making this a spell renowned for its difficulty. Another one of Cornix's restored spells, huh? Well, I was not impressed at all with Fire Surge, but Bursting Fireball might be a little bit better. You're going to need more intellect, though, before we can wield it properly. Poison Mist. Unique pyromancy crafted by Engi, a heretic inhabiting the Great Swamp long ago. Creates a poison mist. Engi was driven from the Great Swamp, however his pyromancy continues to succeed him. Perhaps dwellers of the Great Swamp were reminded that their very existence is one rooted in heresy. So Engi was a NPC in Dark Souls 1. He was the attendant of the Fair Lady, one of the surviving witches of Izalith, who were daughters to one of the I guess I should have said one of the surviving daughters of the Witch of Izalith, one of the lords of the original game. He served her in her covenant. Flash Sweat we dealt with. Here we have Profuse Sweat, advanced pyromancy that internalizes flame associated with Carmina. Profuse sweating temporarily boosts resistance to bleeding, poison, frost, and curses. The yellowish sweat cures all kinds of ailments. These spells are gross. Useful, I suppose, but gross. That's what he has. That's what he has for us for now. Let's go chat with Arena and deliver to her this wondrous tome.
Oh, Champion of Ash, welcome back. Do you wish to hear?
Do you think she's going to like it? First, let's look at the new one she got. Medium Heal. Miracles are fruit of the study of divine tales, a blessing received from the gods through acts of prayer. Miracle strength depends on the caster's faith. Alright, well, nothing to say there. Tears of Denial. Miracle taught by Morn, the Archbishop's apostle. Intended to grant the dying a few moments for a final farewell. Tears are shed for the sake of the living, more so than the deceased. And this spell functions very similar to the second chance spell from Demon Souls, where you reach 0 and you don't die. The spell charge or the buff is used up instead of you dying. In Demon Souls, second chance would give you back, like, I think it was half your life bar or something. This doesn't do anything. This leaves you at like 1 HP, but it can still help you survive an otherwise fatal situation. Force. Elementary miracle among clerics. Creates a shockwave. While it inflicts no direct damage, this miracle propels foes back, staggering them. It can also defend against incoming arrows. Fair enough.
Oh, what's this? Champion of Ash, this divine tome is forbidden. These are dark tales of things that lurk deep within men. These stories would not please you. Of course, if you insist, I will read them for you. Only... oh, they frighten me so. The little creatures that nibble at me in the darkness.
So just seeing this tome reminds her of, I guess, the humanity nibbling at her from within. Let's see what we can get though. Darkblade. Miracle of the Sable Church of Londor. Reinforces right weapon with dark. The third daughter, Liliane, one of the founders of the Sable Church, is said to recount tales that portray the suffering and conflict of Hollows. Vow of Silence. And yet another miracle of the Sable Church. Prevents spells in vicinity, including one's own. Members of the Sable Church are all trained swordsmen, each sworn only to their weapons as they bear the leaden silence of Londor. So they cast this miracle and then rely on their own swordsmanship and, having ensured that no magic or miracles can be used in their vicinity. Dead Again. Sacrilegious miracle of the Sable Church of Londor. Bless corpses, transforming them into traps. Londor, the Hollow Realm, is a society of undead, comprised of the corpses and shades of those who led unsavory lives. Is such blessing really something one must ponder? So I guess it's interesting. Is this a sacrilegious miracle from outside viewers, or it must be considered a sacrilegious miracle to those viewing the Sable Church from the outside? I wasn't sure at first if they meant it was sacrilege within the Sable Church, which could make sense if, they're a society of undead, so they're a little more sensitive about the treatment of corpses, but I think it's actually just considered sacrilege from the living, because what do the undead care about corpses? They're not they're not dying anytime soon. But they are a pragmatic bunch, that's for sure. And here we confirm that Liliane, one of the founders of the Sable Church, and the third daughter. Want to make a wild guess as to whether or not Yuria is another daughter?
Have a pleasant, I pray.
Daughter of whom, though, eh? I'm going to leave that one on the table for now, though. This was actually... I feel like we might have already expended most of our time. And we didn't even get back out on the road again, but it was a very lore-laden episode, so hopefully you can forgive me. One thing I definitely want to get back to that I forgot to do in the last episode, though, is go back to the Xanthos crown. Specifically the line that says, "It was made in imitation of a divine creature of Ulasil." I am very strongly inclined to believe that divine creature would be Elizabeth, the, talking mushroom lady from the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, who was the caretaker or guardian or something along those lines for Dusk of Ulasil. Elizabeth was a teacher of the sorceries of Ulasil, possibly the one who taught Dusk herself, and was an ally to us in that game. This headgear has a very mushroom-like appearance, so I'm willing to bet that's what it's referring to. What is sort of interesting about that, though, is that the Xanathos crown was in Dark Souls 1 as well, but it did not look quite the same. Instead of this mushroom shape, it looked more like a large circular bulb. It did not appear to be a mushroom at all. I don't know if this is just, a retcon to what the Xanthos crown is supposed to look like. Originally it was a very clear reference to a similar item in Demon Souls, the yellow turban, I believe it was called, which was gifted by a demon called the Old Monk, or I think it'd be more accurate to say that the headgear was the demon. Um, and originally that's all we thought it was as a reference, but perhaps now in Dark Souls 3 they have laden it with meaning. And I guess it's also worth mentioning that this headgear is actually looks closer to what the yellow head wrap looked like in Demon Souls. In Demon Souls it had a very conical shape. It was almost as if it was like a whirlwind type shape, as opposed to the bulbous shape in Dark Souls 1. I suppose if you think about it, this headgear is a combination of both, having the circular part at the base and the conical part at the top. I don't know if any of that was intended by the developers or it's just coincidence, but I thought it was worth bringing up because the Xanthos set, King Jeremiah, they were always one of those things that we had basically no lore on in Dark Souls 1, and now it's really awesome to be able to see that cleared up, elaborated on. Alright. Dang it, guys. We are out of time for this episode. I hope it was interesting, if admittedly probably not very exciting. I hope you still enjoyed it, though. Next time, we are going to go straight into the action. We're going to push through more of the Crucifixion Woods and hopefully beyond. And as we do, we will deal more with the area, deal more with these dark sigils, and well, we'll see how far we get next time. Until then, I'm going to sign off, and I hope you guys will join me for the next one. See y'all.